Good evening. This is Defacto Review, a weekly analysis of Mongolia's latest political, economic, and social issues by columnist and economist Mr. Jarasakhin.
Good evening.
And I'll be your host, Tikshirult. Today's topics are on the amendment of the Constitution, the South Korean foreign minister's visit to Mongolia, and women's participation in the economy. Our first issue is something that we discussed 2 weeks ago on the Defacto Review. 2 weeks ago, the Constitutional Court passed a resolution to do away with the limitations of the double dead rule. Previously, only 4 members of parliament and the prime minister were allowed to hold posts in parliament and the cabinet. But with the resolution passed by the court and with a surprising 98.4% of support from parliament, the double dead restriction is no longer in place. So following this change, the cabinet has been restructured, and the cabinet now has 21 members plus the prime minister, and there are now a total of 16 ministries, and 2 ministries that were without ministers have been appointed ministers. There have also been an addition of 2 extra ministries which focus on the revitalization of the ports and physical education and sport. There were other changes, and 10 new ministers were appointed, including the new ministers for the new ministries, and there were some changes within the ministries. And out of these 10 ministries, 9 of them are members of parliament, meaning if they are exercising this double dead privilege granted by the amendment of the Constitution. So with the trend of the makeup of the 9 or the 10 new members, should we expect to see mostly members of parliament in the cabinet in the future?
Indeed, that's what is about all this change. You know, we have been talking whole Mongolia for the last 20 years about restricting this double deal or a parliament member having a cabinet member positions. But however, after just 3 years of amendments restricting that, now they reinstalled back. What happened? According to Mongolian constitutions, more than 1/3 of the parliament members, if suggested, then they have a full right to make amendments in constitutions by majority votes of those who are sitting in that sessions. So what happened was 62 members, the People's Party has 62 seats. They all proposed amendments into the constitutions last week, and it's more than 57 required by the constitutions. So they did it. They just changed it within a couple hours, all these changes we have been working for 15 years. And what is the reason behind? That's questions we need to understand. And during the irregular sessions of the parliament, they not only changed the amendments, but also they have changed the structure of new cabinet, and the new ministers have already sworn. So as you said, now Mongolia has 16 ministries, 16. And 4 of them so-called ministries of general function, and 12 of them as sectoral ministries. 21 plus PM, 22 ministers we have now. Out of that, 4 completely new, Sukbatar, Gambatar, Uchiral, Bolorchulung, all MPs. And those, they are also ministries without portfolio, how they call it. Deputy Prime Minister, head of the Cabinet Secretariat, also minister, head of the State Committee for Port Revitalization, and head of State Committee for Reducing Traffic Congestions in Ulaanbaatar, and head of the State Committee for Physical Education and Sport. So these are 5 ministers without portfolio. Prime Minister explained that somehow, I quote, "There is a legal requirement to harmonize the legal regulation for the structure and composition of the cabinet. We need a new minister, for example, for developing national and professional sports under a unified policy and regulation and supporting efforts to reduce traffic congestions and improve border ports. That means for Ulaanbaatar city, for example, we have a minister and we have a mayor of Ulaanbaatar city, and we need their relations to be harmonized according to the Prime Minister. Very interesting point here. All former chairs of standing committees of the Parliament became ministers. And the Prime Minister is explaining that it will be easier to make decisions. The Prime Minister also said that he had followed the principles of merit and proposed to appoint some chairs of standing committees as ministers. Some of them, some features. Secretary General of the Mongolian People's Party, Amarpay Skalan, was appointed as a head of the Cabinet Secretariat. Chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Budget, Khuril Batar, was appointed as a Minister of Economy and Development. He is a 4 times MP and ex-Minister for Finance. Minister of Roads and Transport Development, Mr. Byamtsokht, is MP and ex-Minister for Justice and Internal Affairs. Chairman of the Standing Committee, former Chairman of the Standing Committee on Economy, Batar, was appointed as Minister of Mining and Heavy Industry. He was also previously elected as a Parliament member in 2016 and 2020. A new Minister for Labor Social Protection is Mrs. Sarangire, who is also a lawmaker since 2012 and has served as both the Minister of Health and the Minister of Environment and Tourism. The former chairman of the Standing Committee on Environment, Food and Agriculture, Mr. Baloch Chulung, was appointed as Minister of Food, Agriculture and Light Industry. And he was here also the minister, and he has been Member of Parliament since 2012. A new Minister of Digital Development Communication, Mr. Uchral, is the UK-educated young man, Parliament member, initiator of many laws related to the digital development of the country. Chairman of the Standing Committee of Industrialization Policy, Mr. Chaijul Suren, was appointed as a Minister of Energy. He served as a Minister of Finance from 2016 to 2017. Head of the National Committee for Reducing Traffic Congestion in Ulaanbaatar, or Minister Sukhbata, for example. He is also a Parliament member. Finally, the Chairman of the Standing Committee Committee on Ethics and Discipline, Mr. Batirten, has been appointed as a head of the State Committee for Physical Education and Sport. He was a Minister of Defense as well. Noticeably, he was also very much opposing this tahor or double dale policy. Nevertheless, he is now a minister who has this double dale. So the cabinet has 13 ministers with double dale, holding dual posts. So what I would like to say about these positions: first, chairmen of standing committees has more chance to be a minister, looks like from now on. Now we have a new standing committees already chairs, and in that way many political ambitions of the parliament members are fulfilled, at least to be nominated as a chair of the standing committees. So the other difficulty is all ex-ministers got new positions. Mr. Haftar, who was a head of Minister for Road and Transport, now he is becoming a deputy minister. Very difficult position to be there, because Mr. Byamtsokht is now minister, and it's very difficult to cooperate new minister and old minister being his deputy of the new minister. Mr. Yondong, who was the minister for mining and heavy industry, now he is a head of Erdenet Mining Corporation, the largest state-owned copper concentrate producer in the country. Tevin Bik, the former Minister of Energy, is now at the same ministry, but only he is now State Secretary. Arun Zaya, who was the Social Care and the Labor Ministry, she is now the Chief advisor to the Prime Minister, as the previous chief advisor, Bolorma, is nominated as a governor of the Hov province, first woman governor of province ever in the country. So I think all these rotations, it's huge rotation among political elite of the country, is not only political and economic experiences to gain not only political and economic experiences, it's also good for further connectivity, harmonization of all ministries, according to the Amar Bay Sakalan. However, since there is no transparent system of political party financing in Mongolia, it is not that easy to have all new positions. So there was a practice of buying high-ranking positions by funding on political parties in the country. Many cases are on surface. So this whole nominations, we need to see the result. Only time will show whether it was correct or not. The important thing is whether economic recovery is coming soon, whether we will combat inflation shortly. These are the challenges that new cabinet is facing today.
Now that the members of parliament can also join the cabinet, the executive and legislative branches are sort of mingling in at this point, so to say. So do you think what kind of problems or benefits do you think that we'll see from this change in the constitution?
We are coming back exactly to the position in the political terms, in the position in 2000, where they have allowed this double deal. Since that, we had a lot of controversial happenings, in particular conflict of interests of executive power and legislative power. And a lot of cases where under certain conditions they were moved. So the one person had double deal positions. So we need to see that on one side. On the other side, the minister who has not parliament member positions is very difficult for him or her to go with their policy to get adopted or approved by the parliament members, as each parliament member wants to be a minister in that field. So that's the conflicts we have seen. As a result of that, probably many decisions of the government went not at fast speed path than the Prime Minister, for example, expected. So they are new reality we need to live from now for quite some time, maybe a couple, 3, 4 elections through.
Let's move on to our next topic, which deals with foreign affairs of Mongolia. So during the visit of Mr. Park Jin, who is the South Korean foreign minister, during his visit to Mongolia, he met his counterpart, Ms. Batzik, who is the foreign minister of Mongolia. During their talk, the ministers agreed to expand and strengthen bilateral cooperation in the future, and the two sides agreed to pay more attention to the development of priority areas of the economy such as transportation, logistics, tourism, energy, mining, and agriculture. Mr. Jin also expressed his support for the new revival policy of Mongolia, which has been a focal point for development in Mongolia. The ministers also discussed projects that are underway in Mongolia. So what were some of these initiatives that they discussed?
South Korea and Mongolia have a lot of common values, like democracy, human rights, market economy. And South Korea is one of most closest third neighbor for Mongolia. And this country was very friendly, and many Mongolians live and work there, some of them illegally. And now, according to the South Korean official statistics, some 38,000 Mongolians live and work in Korea. But some statistics say that it is more than that. So there is a lot of interest to protect the interests of people living in legally or illegally in South Korea, and from time to time we have a good news, bad news about those diaspora, Mongolian diaspora there. But on the official front, good news are coming, and this foreign minister visit is very important for the country. And as you said, these 5 priority areas. Just one of them, for example, transportation and logistics. Here we, with South Korea, do important development in a new airport, international airport area, Husuktuk Valley. And also they are reflecting a lot from the Incheon free economic trade zone of Korea experiences. And the Mongolians study there, and there will be new development in this regard. The other thing is Mongolia now open for Koreans free of visa. That's why this year, this first time, this summer has Mongolian tourism has received a lot Korean tourists. The other thing in agriculture is South Korea's project called the Smart Farm Project will be implemented in Mongolia. There is a lot so-called Samwel Undong New Village movement, which was helpful for Korea to change its agricultural phase for the last 40 years. So Mongolia has already experienced working with this Samwel Undong SMU. So it looks like now a new project coming, Smart Farm. And also the Koreans are working with Ulaanbaatar city. They are making Solongo Affordable Housing Complex 1 and 2 projects. And Korea is one of the few countries housing everybody who could house every family with own apartment or housing. The other thing was economic partnership agreement will be made in between 2 countries. It's like free trade agreement. Like what we did with Japan. So they will work on that. Also, they will reconsider intergovernmental agreement on mutual promotion and protection of investments. The other thing I have learned was the particular attention was given even before the visit. In the Korean newspaper, it was talked about. It was about the supply of rare earth elements for semiconductors and batteries. And the Korean foreign minister have highlighted that, and South Korean government will provide a grant for establishment of joint research center for rare earth elements in Mongolia, which is a substantial step. It's not only for South Korea, but it's also for all the world, which 85% supplied by this kind of chips from Taiwan. So it's a strategic element, and I think this investment is very on-time step ahead. The other interesting thing was continuation of so-called green belt projects. I remember for last almost 20 or more years, Mongolian and Korean NGOs, including Rotary clubs, have started this project and implemented many trees all around Mongolia. And it will continue, and it will cover 45 hectares of land, which will be a substantial part of the Billion Trees project started by our president. And also they have, again, enhanced the situation of cooperation within the framework of supporting the exchange of citizens. Joint support will be provided in the fields of culture, education, health, children's and youth development, sports, physical culture, and humanitarianism. So it shows already how wider and deeper the relations with this country, within these 2 countries. The other thing I'd like to highlight is, as I said earlier, to protect the interests of Mongolian citizens living in South Korea. And there will be easier for traveling Mongolians to Korea for 15 days from particular port in Korea, and the transition through Korea is becoming easier, and now related agencies work on making easier this visa requirements. And also another important thing is there is an initiative by Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar Dialogue on Northeast Asian Security. Mostly it's about the relations between 2 Koreas, started in Mongolia and successfully moving ahead every year. Another interesting thing to notice is, again, there will be tripartite meeting between Mongolia, South Korea, and United States, as much as like the tripartite agreement with Japan, US, and Mongolia. The South Korean side, for the first time, expressed readiness to support Mongolia's long-term wanted accessions to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation called APEC and the East Asia Summit, which will boost a lot Mongolian presence in Southeast Asia. So it's 30 years of diplomatic relations with Korea, and two countries are ready to really go ahead in all this front of economic cooperation and for security. That all this were confirmed by this visit of Foreign Minister of South Korea.
Let's move on to our final topic for this week. This past Monday, the Increasing Women's Participation in Economic Development Conference was held by the President's Office, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, Mongolian National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the International Women's Federation of Commerce and Industry. The issues that were focused on at the conference were the main problems faced by women entrepreneurs, such as law, legality, budget and taxation, financing, employment and human resources, digital development and information technology, domestic and international projects and programs, and also economic participation of women. So women make up half of our population, but the National Statistics Office reports that women are less likely to own land or real estate as men, and they earn 17% less than what men earn in the same field and the same position. So how do you think that we should fix this issue? Was this a part of the conference?
Well, indeed, this is an agenda of our development. The country wants to see more women's participation in economic development, but however, it's different than what we want and what we see now. According to the result of 2021 enterprise census of the National Statistics Office, out of more than 147,000 registered enterprises, 92,500 or 63% are run by men, while 54,000 or 37% have female leaders. Some 44% of female managed enterprises are operating in the trade sector, 9% in processing industry, 13% in science and health sector. So it shows the structure where most likely women work, mostly in trade, where this 44%. So it shows already in which sector women are mostly engaged. There was also 2 trillion MNT, a soft loan was given to SMEs, but 36% are to a company run by a woman. So all this altogether shows really inequality in this participation. And also, as you said, very most likely Mongolian women have less likely to have titles on property, for example. At the conference, people were talking about the challenges facing, and the reasons of that situation is collateral, high interest rates, long durations, that causing women, for example, receiving less loan. So altogether, we need to improve the social perception of women doing businesses in the country and promoting more women-run management. And I should say that, nevertheless, in spite of this statistics, women entrepreneurs keep increasing. And in terms of the property ownership, there is a lot need to fix legally the property, for example, owned by a family, so-called social family, we call it the civic family, where the marriage is not registered as official. As a result, when divorced, women stay without anything. These cases are causing a lot of problems in the society, and we are not addressing enough that, not only from the judicial point of view, but a social point of view. In particular, the culture of not accepting that is not still here, still is to grow. So these are just a few reasons why a woman still have this low participation in economic development of Mongolia.
Let's hope it improves in the future.
Must be, yes. But the similar situation are in many countries, actually. The good thing is we address this issue, and there is certain statistics comparing women participation. We are in the middle of all countries in the world about. So we still need to go ahead. And the other thing is more than half, about 60 or 65% of students at the tertiary educations in Mongolia are women. Mm-hmm. And we have the largest percent of women participate cabinet. The previous cabinet was in the country. So there are several positive changes. We need to grow it and support it. Have more this kind of discussions as this conference to me.
That is all for this week. This has been Defacto Review, a weekly analysis of Mongolia's latest political, economic, and social issues by economist and columnist Mr. Jarasakh.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Look at our program at the website jargaldefacto.com, which comes in several languages. Thank you very much.